Welcome to chapter 12 of the book of Leviticus. Now we change over from the description of all of the accoutrements of the temple and the dress of the priests, high priests, and so forth, and the sacrifices into laws, individual laws, pretty much through the rest of the book, I believe. Here it begins. The first one is the laws regarding childbirth. Here in chapter 13, we'll see laws regarding skin infection. So all these different laws that we'll be going through. Now you could question, well, what do they got to do with us today? Well, actually, the last chapter we did have the laws as far as the foods that they could and couldn't eat. So I suppose it really started in 11. But here we have the laws regarding childbirth, and the Lord, Kyrios, spoke to Moses, saying, "Speak to the sons of Israel," and the imperative, tell them, and here it is, "and you shall say to them, saying, a woman, whoever should conceive and should give birth to a male, she shall be unclean 7 days." Well, geni, we have the word misogyny, comes from that, hating women or wives. The geni can be either a wife or a woman. It depends on the context. And in the New Testament, where Jesus, it says the wife was guilty of committing adultery, and then it says whoever should look upon a wife sins in his heart, has committed adultery. Not looking on a woman. Every man that's unmarried, most of them do look on women. I mean, it's part of human nature. But looking on a wife is a different thing. So some places you can obviously tell it's talking about a wife. I believe in when it talks about a wives teaching in the church, it doesn't necessarily mean women. Women can teach other women. But here, I guess Paul could go either way. I would prefer changing it to wife, because generally anybody that was conceiving and having a baby should have been married. Now, if a woman was giving birth out of wedlock, does this male giving this male, does it still count? It doesn't say it wouldn't, so I suppose it would. So whenever she should conceive and should give birth to a male, not a woman, not a female, a male child. Now, it does have different regulations for the female. We'll get into it later in the chapter. But she shall be unclean 7 days. Actually, it's twice as long for if you had a female. I changed this from a semicolon to a dash. According to the days of the separation of her menstruation, she shall be unclean. Now, so whatever the days of the separation, the 7 days, I would imagine that's what it's talking about. And in the 8th day, she shall circumcise the flesh of his acrovistias, for skin. Acro is something on the end. Vistias, I'm not sure. I didn't look that part up, but shall circumcise, that is, cut away the foreskin of the male penis, as God told Abraham, and continued it now with Moses. And we see in the New Testament that the circumcision of Jesus is mentioned in the book of Luke, 2nd chapter, verse 21. Luke was not there. He had to have went back. He was a traveling companion of Paul. He went back, I'm sure, and talked to various sources to find out. Would have had to have probably talked to Mary to receive information for these stories here. And it says, and when 8 days were fulfilled of the circumcising the child, that his name was called Jesus. So the name being called by the angel before his being conceived in the belly. So that leaves out abortion. Abortion's murder, because if God allows information to be given before the conception or the having the baby, then destroying it is destroying a creation of God. And when the days were fulfilled of her cleansing, according to the law of Moses, I guess that would be the 7 days, they led him unto Jerusalem to render to the Lord, as it has been written in the law of the Lord, that every male opening wide the womb shall be called holy to the Lord, which it did here in Leviticus 12, and to give a sacrifice according to the thing being said in the law of the Lord, and we'll get into that here when we get back to Leviticus, a pair of turtle doves or 2 young pigeons, and this were for people that were poor, other larger animals for the wealthy. And now it says, and behold, there was a man in Jerusalem whose name was Simeon, and this man was just and reverent, waiting for the consolation of Israel, and Holy Spirit was upon him. And there was to him a receiving of a divine message by the Holy Spirit to not see death before he should behold the Messiah, the Christ, the Christos of the Lord. And he came in the Spirit into the temple. Now, in the Spirit means that he was thinking the things of God, I'm sure, but he came fleshly also. And in the bringing the child Jesus by the parents, for them to do according to the thing accustomed by law for him, circumcision, that he received it into his embrace, and blessed God, and said, now loosen your bondman, O master, according to your word, in peace. For my eyes saw your deliverance, which you prepared before the face of all the peoples, a light for an uncovering of nations, and glory of your people Israel. He saw that this Christ was for the nations also. Today you would not see that in Israel. Israel of today is only for the Jews. And Joseph and his mother were marveling over the things being spoken concerning him. And then Simeon blessed them and said to Mary, his mother, behold, this one is situated for a downfall and a rising up of many in Israel, and for a sign being disputed, which he was. Died, rose again, disputed. Even and you even, a broadsword shall go through your soul, when he was put to death, so that the hearts from many, the thoughts from many hearts should be uncovered. So people would know that they were in sin, and Jesus was the knower of hearts. And there was Anna, a prophetess, daughter of Phanuel, from out of the tribe of Asir. Well, she was advanced in many days. Now, prophetess, we have Huldah was a prophetess also, and I think Deborah. And she was advanced in many days, having lived 7 years with a husband from her virginity, and she was a widow about 84 years. So 84 years, a widow, and 7 years with a husband, 91, and she was probably 13, 15, 91, so over 100 years old maybe, who did not leave from the temple, but with fastings and supplications, serving night and day. So women did have a place in the temple, they have a place in the church. And women teach other women. I just don't believe it's why I believe what it says is a wife is not to teach other men, basically to be with the husband. But they're they can fast, have supplications, praying for other people. Many services that are given by women, goes on and on. And she, standing by in the same hour, confessed to the Lord and spoke concerning him to all the ones waiting for a ransoming in Jerusalem. So she must have been looking on what was all going on, saw Jesus, and as they finished altogether the things according to the law of the Lord, they returned unto Galilee, unto their own city, Nazareth. So the 30 days she shall sit in the blood of her cleansing. So she shall not touch anything holy, and I guess that would be afterwards, and into the sanctuary. Now find out what. She shall not enter into the sanctuary until whenever the days of her cleansing should have been fulfilled. So she could not go in for that period of time. But if she should give birth to a female, then she will be unclean twice, 7 days according to her menstruation, and 60 days and 6 she shall be seated in her unclean blood. And whenever the days of her cleansing should be fulfilled, for a son or for a daughter, she shall bring a lamb of a year old for a whole burnt offering, and a young pigeon or turtle dove for a sin offering to the door of the tent of the testimony. So now I'm not sure, and that goes back with Jesus. They circumcised him, but now when she went to the temple, that may have been after the 30, this period of time to offer this offer. I was always thinking that the circumcision in that part of Luke was done there in Jerusalem, but maybe it wasn't. Maybe that's just noticing that. But anyway, here's the young pigeon or a turtle dove to the door, or a lamb for a person that had a lot of money. And we remember that this is what Mary brought. But she brought more than just a young pigeon or a turtle dove for a sin offering. She brought the sin offering. Jesus was the sin offering, the human sin offering that would be once for all. After this, the resurrection of Jesus, the sin offering was no longer needed to be made as far as these animals and sacrificing and so forth. So she brought Jesus, God himself in the flesh, to the door of the testimony, to the priest. And she shall bring it before the Lord, and the priest shall atone for her. And Jesus was the atonement, the final atonement, and shall cleanse her from the spring of her blood. This is the law for the giving birth to a male or female. But if her hand does not find enough for the lamb, then she shall take 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons, one for a whole burnt offering and one for a sin offering. And the priest shall atone for her, and she shall be cleansed. Wonderful chapter, I think, as far as God's setting up a future offering that would be for us today. We don't have to bring anything. The priesthood is non-officious. It doesn't really do anything for us to go to a priest. We can go directly to Jesus, the sin offering. So that is the next law, the first one of the foods to eat and not to eat. Then now comes the laws regarding skin infections. We all have them. We'll find out what this is all about and find out how it relates to the New Testament. Hope you'll join us in chapter 13. Till then, God bless.